Have you ever stopped and thought, you know who would make a good Christmas special? The guy who made Fritz the Cat and Coonskin? No, never? Well, someone did. Well, that's not 100% true, as the special was never meant to be a special at all. Today we're going to talk about an unusual Christmas special that was intended to be something a little more, and was to be the first of its kind. Spearheaded by a legendary yet controversial creator, we are going to look into a special that was years into the making. With that said, I'm tuned in, I'm tuned up, and this is Ralph Bakshi's Christmas in Tattertown. Subtlety. That is not something that I would describe this special, because it keeps running at 500 miles per hour without stopping. However, there is an amazing amount of history when it comes to it, starting way back in the 1960s. This is when Bakshi made a comic strip called Junktown. It featured misfit technology and discarded ideas. Years after that, he studied, worked on, and improved his craft. He ended up making legendary films, controversial films. He worked with popular characters like Heckle and Jekyll and Spider-Man. The man knew his stuff. So when he pitched Nickelodeon an idea for a series about a world where discarded toys go, they bought it. This was, of course, Junktown, where the president of Nickelodeon's production liked the idea for the story so much that it was going to be the first Nicktoon, called Tattertown. Nickelodeon greenlit 39 episodes for the series. Bakshi described Tattertown like this. Tattertown is a strange world. What I wanted to do was make something where old and new animation could clash head-on, visually, stylistically, and in attitude. Tattertown is where old cartoon characters live side by side with new cartoon characters, and they had a hell of a time relating. The old characters go all the way back to Paul Terry's Farmer Alfalfa. Oswald the Rabbit is there, and Bosco. And they're right up against characters who are modern and can't move very well, and have superior attitudes. However, issues came up while the pilot of the series was in production. Was it something that happened with the production itself? Partially. It partially had to do with another project Bakshi was working on. A little something called Mighty Mouse, the 1987 version. You see, Bakshi was the head of production of that series, and there was an incident with one of the scenes in an episode called The Littlest Tramp. You see, the scene in question has Mighty Mouse sniffing a crushed up flower stem he received earlier. It's kind of a common gag where a character will sniff something or breathes in heavily and something ends up in their nose. Unfortunately, this time that something ended up looking like cocaine. The episode probably aired 3 times before Donald Wildman, head of the American Family Association, accused the show of the cocaine sniffing. Now, out of context and not paying attention to the rest of the episode, that is what it looks like. However, if you watch the actual episode, you would know better. The thing is, Bakshi had nothing to do with the scene itself. It was a sight gag inserted by an animator. You see, while the scripts had been approved by CBS, the show's supervisor director, John Kafowski, told the animators to add sight gags into episodes while they were animating. And that is what happened with this episode. However, in the end, CBS did not want the media attention and Mighty Mouse was canceled. Unfortunately, because of this, Nickelodeon was getting cold feet about the Tattertown series. But it wasn't just Nickelodeon that was having concerns. Bakshi himself seemed to notice that while the concept of Tattertown itself seemed fine on paper, the idea was not working. Even Jeffrey Darby, president and production of Nickelodeon at the time, has admitted, unfortunately, we just didn't give him enough money to do Tattertown right. Bakshi pitched us a unique world that had really heartstring human qualities. All the things a good story needs. It was really the story that got us, not just him. And it was too bad, because the story and the idea was better than the execution. What ended up was a pilot for a cartoon series that never happened. The pilot was converted to a Christmas special and was shown regularly on Nickelodeon each year until Bakshi retained the rights to it. Now, with both Nickelodeon and Bakshi stating the concept didn't work, how was the pilot? Let's find out. We are introduced to part of the main cast by stills and storytelling. As we learn how the main cast got to Tattertown, we never learn why. Debbie and her 2 stuffed animals, Dog and Little Miss Muffet, are sent to Tattertown through a magic book that Debbie found. I'm sure that if this had not just been a pilot, they would probably explain this a little more. And from the moment we get to Tattertown, we get some good old nightmare fuel.
Tattertown! Tattertown! Tattertown!
I am legitimately frightened. We get a little bit into the show before we get any explanation of what Tattertown is. A living saxophone named Miles introduces us to Tattertown, a place where lost things end up, like dignity on the internet. Obviously, we're not going to hit the jokes out of the park with this review. The idea is, if you ever lost something, it ends up in Tattertown. I wonder if the special was an influence on the Erie, Indiana episode The Losers. Those lost objects become alive in Tattertown. It is very interesting because the concept is almost the same as Bakshi's film Cool World. I mean, you have what is supposed to be a human entering the bizarre world where almost everything is alive. Just replace the word lost objects with the word doodle. I'm not sure if that is intentional on Bakshi's part, since he didn't write the final script for Cool World. That is surprising because this special is just as random as Cool World. We also get a lot of scenes that make no sense at all. I think that was more of the animation aspects of Cool World than it was the writing. So when entering Tattertown, both Muffet and the dog become alive. Dog is pretty much there and does very little outside of comic relief. However, Little Miss Muffet, realizing that she is now alive, makes a break for it and takes off away from Debbie to enjoy life. And I mean, she really appreciates it to the point of tears. Then again, if I were a self-aware inanimate object, I would be exploring the possibilities too if I were given life. And then along comes Debbie chasing after Muffet. She gets terrified of the thought of going back to her old lifestyle, being smothered and hugged and abused. Yeah, I'd run away too. However, when we get back to her in the middle of the special, Muffet is subtly evil with no real explanation for it. She is also upset that no one knows who she is, even though she has been in Tattertown for less than an hour. Yeah, you're going to notice this a lot with this special. The concept of time is non-existent, as the characters act like Debbie, Dog, and Muffet have been in Tattertown for months. Now Muffet wants to take over Tattertown. Why? We're just going to leave that hanging, aren't we? There is no explanation of what Muffet's motivation is after getting away from Debbie. Why is she evil now? There's no rhyme or reason for it other than just cuz. Muffet meets a spider named Sydney, who is pretty much a poorly animated Nails from Cool World, although this is before Cool World. He's got the same voice actor too.
Oh, listen to that amateur.
That sounds smashingly good, smashingly!
Charlie Adler. Sydney too is evil, and he takes Muffet away to recruit war toys from the Dexter Zone. Highway to the Dexter Zone. The Dexter Zone is a place where old war toys, television sets, and all sorts of unsavory characters live. I see what you did there, Bakshi. And she takes the place over with no questions asked. And the war toys let her because intimidation? She's never proved herself outside of yelling and insults, which is pretty much her for the rest of the special. The only kind of development we really get out of her is when she finds out that Tattertown is celebrating Christmas. She ends up having what seems to be war flashbacks as she becomes very paranoid about the situation. What did Debbie do to her? And then we have a scene of how truly evil Muffet is, because her favorite cuisine is tobacco pie. What is that supposed to mean exactly? If you like tobacco products, you're a bad guy? Well, this is a trend that needs to die. Look, most of us know that tobacco is not good for you. And there's a pretty good chance that most people regret getting addicted to it and would quit if it was that simple. But don't villainize people just because they use tobacco products. Maybe that's not what Bakshi was going for, but it comes across that way. Anyway, Muffet never gets her tobacco pie because a living stove eats it before she does and pees it out. Did that just happen? Look, I know it's supposed to be ash, but still, it looked like it urinated it out, and I think that was intentional. We also get a scene where Sydney the spider tries on Muffet's crown and cape. It's the whole jealousy thing. Pretend you're in power when you're not when the other guy's out of town. And of course he gets caught. But we end up with this line.
He's always dressing up in your clothes when you're not home.
A day. She's only been there for a day. When did she get a cape and crown? For that matter, how often does she leave the base in the one day she was there? Focus, Bakshi! So we get Muffet dressing up as Santa Claus as she wants to stop Tattertown's Christmas. And Sydney recognizes the outfit. Isn't the point of the special the residents of Tattertown not knowing anything about Christmas? Oh, who am I kidding? There's no continuity here. Muffet declares war on Tattertown as she and a bunch of war toys descend on the town. She's intercepted by Santa, so Muffet decides to attack him. This confuses the war toys, and they attack each other. They dead. When Santa leaves, Muffet continues to attack the town solo. And then Debbie does... well, let's talk about Debbie. Debbie is obnoxious. She chases Muffet around Tattertown just because she wants to dress her up and pretend that she isn't alive. Can you imagine doing that to another living creature? Oh right, we do that to our pets and children all the time, don't we? This is my child, she's on display, look at her and then praise me. One of the problems with this show is everyone seems to know Debbie and Debbie seems to know everyone in Tattertown. This is confusing since she just got there.
What's that behind your back?
Haha, that Nickelodeon censor button, if that look you just gave goes a little too far.
Goodness, what have you done this time?
This time? Isn't this the first time you guys met? Again, no concept of time.
What's a Christmas?
What? You mean you don't know what Christmas is?
Look, you stuck-up bitch! You're in a strange land with strange concepts and laws you don't even understand. And you're ridiculing them for not knowing the customs of your world? Don't act so high and mighty. And yes, Debbie is like this throughout the entire special, giving orders and belittling characters for the smallest things. And she's also drawn stuck up. Most of the time her head is tilted upwards as she tries to look down as she's talking to a person lower than she is. That is hard to do. You try tilting your head upwards while trying to look down. It hurts, doesn't it? So like with Muffet taking over the Dexter Zone, Debbie has taken over Tattertown as she is now ordering people to find lost Christmas decorations. She's only been there for what, less than an hour? Stop letting her give you orders. Debbie finally talks about missing home 10 minutes into the special. Shouldn't the main goal be finding a way back home? Not forcing the people of Tattertown to find Christmas junk?
It ain't junk, it's family.
Don't change the subject. And it's amazing how they did change the subject when Debbie starts to explain what Christmas is. And fails. She explains what she does for Christmas, but never why. This is a problem a lot of specials have, especially if they come from DreamWorks, as they never explain why they celebrate Christmas or any holiday in the first place. If you're going to try to have others see your point of view in celebrating a holiday, you have to give them a reason. Not just cuz. But just cuz seems to be the theme of the special. Just cuz. She didn't even use the go-to excuse when specials want to avoid the religious aspects of Christmas. You know, it's a time to be with family excuse. There has to be a reason why we celebrate a holiday. For Americans, most of our national holidays are historical or honoring someone or used for teaching or reflection. When you watch something like Trolls Holiday, you realize that none of the Trolls holidays have any real substance or meaning behind them. This is why I never like the introducing to someone new to a holiday cliche specials or episodes when they never really give a reason why they celebrate something in the first place. It's like Shrek the Halls. Everyone tells Shrek that he needs to celebrate Christmas, but no one tells him why. He's never celebrated it before. Why should he do it now? You have to convince him. And Donkey never gave him anything of substance why he should. Fiona never gave him a reason why he should, outside of just cuz. Getting back to Tattertown. Now Ralph Bakshi has been making cartoons for decades. He should understand storytelling and give at least something of substance, but yet you have none of that here.
Well, what are you all standing around for? Let's have ourselves a Christmas!
Really? You'll end up with a knife in your back if you don't stop your snobbery. Because these guys are rather violent. She pretty much gets about 3 characters to stand still in public for who knows how long, along with a tree, with no real explanation why. And when Muffet starts her attack, everyone begins to think Christmas is a show.
Oh, Muffet! I love you, Muffet!
She is going to gut you if she's given the chance. You know that, right? And this is after Debbie tries to explain what Christmas is again, but not really. So out of desperation, Debbie plays a record. Is this a record explaining why we celebrate Christmas? No, it's just a recording of White Christmas. A song about what we do at Christmas time, but not really why. That seems to stop Sydney from attacking though, and he throws Muffet off of him and into jail. Also, the other citizens of Tattertown start crying. This does not make sense since none of them have experienced anything described in the song. Well, that isn't true. Children can listen to sleigh bells in the snow, people can send cards, and treetops glisten with snow. It's just, they never associated it with Christmas. These characters aren't supposed to be emotionally invested in this song, as they are not presented in this special. Muffet's in jail, and Debbie thinks she can have her doll again. And that's Christmas in Tattertown. Is it good? No. Is it a mess? Oh, hell yes. It's so unfocused. This special is a mess and it answers very little questions. Oh, sure, the who and where are answered, but the what, why, and how aren't. It keeps forgetting that the two main characters have only been in their world for a day. There is very little explanation outside of what Tattertown is. The animation is sloppy and distracting, and I know Basky likes old school animation, but old school stuff is not this bad. Half the time the lips don't sync up with the vocals, sometimes the mouths don't move at all, and I know it isn't Basky's fault as much as it was the lack of funding. We have two main characters where one is supposed to be good and the other is evil, but both come off as bad since Debbie forces others to celebrate a holiday they know nothing about, and were never given any reason to celebrate it. Both Muffet and Debbie come off as controlling as Debbie ends up taking over Tattertown. And even though she's supposed to be the protagonist of the special, Debbie is less likable than Muffet. Plus, whatever happened to trying to get home? They didn't even tackle that. Now I can excuse the reason why this is so bad, since this meant to be a pilot for a Nickelodeon show. But even Adventure Time's original pilot made sense. And that's freaking Adventure Time! But as sloppy and distracting as it is, was I entertained? Yes, it's not the greatest thing in the world, but I had fun. I recommend it for kids. For adults, unless you're nostalgic for it, I'd give it a pass since it offers very little.
You do, and I'll give you such a pinch.
Nope, that joke still doesn't make sense. Let's Google pie pinching. There's a pie called pinch pie. Makes a little more sense now. But if I had to Google it to understand a joke, then the joke is clearly not working. Also, boy, there's a few copyright infringing characters in this special. How are they going to get away with that in this series? Wasn't Bosco and Oswald copyrighted at that time? Also, it is kind of nice to have both the voices of Sasami and Ayeka from Tenchi Muyo voice both Debbie and Muffet, even though this was before Tenchi Muyo. I'm sorry, I'm a fan. Except for that last OVA. That was boring! So that's our video. If you liked it, please hit the like and subscribe button. Also ring that bell for any future videos that I publish. You can find me on Facebook under Toonamp Art and Entertainment, find me on Twitter under Toonamp Reviews, find me on Tumblr and DeviantArt under Toonamp, or support me on Patreon under Toonamp.